Welcome back to Danielle Terry's Italy. Right now, there is war, political uncertainty, and a sense that the ground is shifting under all of us. I know we all feel it. And I find myself returning again to history, particularly the history of southern Italy, not as an escape, but as a laboratory. Because what I see there over and over again across 3,000 years of history is that, of course, this has happened before. I've been working on a larger book project about exactly this, and I'd like to share it with you as I go. It's about history's unexpected connections, the moment where everything converges in ways that are sometimes devastating and sometimes completely delightful. And I'm also giving you a story to travel with. You know, I've never been one for listicles or, top 10 lists. What I want to give you is a story that's meaningful, something to look forward to, something to dream about long after the trip is over. The places you visit will mean something different, something deeper when you arrive already carrying these stories inside you. The first one starts somewhere delicious. If you've ever eaten fresh buffalo mozzarella in southern Italy, you already know it's one of the most delicious things a human being can put in their mouth. But have you ever wondered how on earth water buffalo ended up in Italy in the first place? The answer involves Arab traders, Viking kings, and a slow motion geological phenomenon with a Greek name that turns out to describe much more than just the movement of the earth. The answer is better than you'd expect. Italy has earned such a sterling culinary reputation that most people just open their mouths and say yes to whatever is put in front of them. Every once in a while, though, someone says, "Buffalo mozzarella, what the hell is that?" And yeah, it's a strange thing to encounter, especially because these enormous but very sensitive water buffalo are cousins to the ones that you'll find in Vietnam or Cambodia, where buffalo milk mozzarella is not a thing. Buffalo mozzarella is made primarily in the region of Campania. It graces pizza in Naples, and also it has a different casein than most cow's milk, so the lactose intolerant among us can indulge. Buffalo farms abound in Caserta, near the stupendous Palace of Caserta, where the Bourbon monarchy ruled over the kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Before Italy became the nation we know it as today in 1861, there was a monarchy in southern Italy, which pioneered several industries, including a dairy industry based on buffalo milk. But even more exquisite is the stuff made at a handful of farms a little further south. If you're driving there, maybe on a day trip from Naples or the Amalfi Coast, you'll inevitably get snarled in traffic on what locals call the Mozzarella Highway through Battipaglia. Every sign on the roadside is flashing Mozzarella di Bufala. The traffic is largely due to hundreds of trucks that pass through daily to pick up mozzarella and transport it to supermarkets across Italy. I have heard waiters in Florence extolling the virtues of its freshness, boasting that it had just arrived in the restaurant that afternoon. I've also heard waiters in New York cooing that they just picked it up from JFK that morning. Keep driving. Battipaglia is an industrial farming zone, and everything is pasteurized for export. Better things await in the town called Carpaccio Pestum. Pestum is most famous for three extraordinarily well-preserved Greek temples. They are massive. They were built of travertine, a volcanic stone, then coated in plaster and painted to mimic white marble, which doesn't exist in southern Italy. Pestum was colonized by Greeks, conquered by Lucanians, who were the indigenous people of the area, who the Greeks employed as their security goons, and then it became a Roman city. Pestum was considered very old when the Romans conquered it. The oldest of the three temples at that time was 280 years old. The Greeks regarded everything around the temples as sacred ground, but Romans were insatiable real estate developers. They developed markets, civic buildings. They built a large Asclepion, which was the closest thing to a hospital in the classical world, and dozens of smaller temples all surrounding the big, very, very old ones. Roman Pestum was bigger and far more important than Pompeii or Herculaneum, and though it's beyond the reach of Mount Vesuvius's molten tentacles, it is still affected by earthquakes. The Roman Empire declined and Pestum sank. Literally. The reason? A phenomenon called bradyseism, which is a Greek word. Bradys means slow, and seismos means movement. It's an imperceptible but continuous slow rising and falling of the earth. a slow-motion earthquake. When the Greeks built the temples close to the glittering Tyrrhenian Sea, things were on the up. But by the 3rd and 4th centuries, Paestum was a swamp infested with malaria-carrying mosquitoes. Mal aria means bad air. The Paestani, the citizens of Paestum, fled for the hills. Some went to the hills just above Paestum, founding Capaccio, my grandmother's hometown, while others went higher to the sea-facing cliffs of the Amalfi Coast. The name of Positano may in fact be related to the fact that the Paestani settled it. And people also went to Salerno, which was a smaller Roman city, then Lombard, and in 1077 officially conquered by the Normans, who were proud descendants of the Vikings, and loosely related to the Normans who just 11 years earlier took England in the Battle of Hastings. Salerno was a luxurious city. It had a lot of international merchants and shops, and it became home to the world's first medical school. Meanwhile, once glorious Paestum, not very far away at all, must have looked like the zombie apocalypse. Now, just to let you know, I haven't forgotten we were talking about buffalo and cheese. They will soon re-enter our story, but first, we need to make a stop in Salerno. Salerno was where the Norman king built a cathedral dedicated to St. Matthew the Apostle. It's believed that St. Matthew died in either Ethiopia or Persia, but his bones somehow ended up near Paestum. And 2 people had a dream that alerted them to the location of these old bones. They retrieved them, and a cathedral was built around them. The Normans had also begun to adorn the city, and what today we call the Centro Storico of Salerno, the historic center, was decorated with Roman columns from Paestum. They are embedded in many corners, and sometimes you'll see a sign with a dog lifting his leg and a red line through it. It may read, Questa è storia, this is history, so don't let your dog pee on it. Massive columns that you'll encounter in the courtyard of the cathedral, they came from what must have been another enormous temple at Paestum, which was clearly functioning as an open quarry. Why? Because using Roman columns makes an architectural argument that the new power is heir to the Roman one. For someone from somewhere else, northern France in this case, to frame himself as the legitimate successor to Roman Caesars. And how did they physically pull them out of the swamp and drag them back to Salerno? With water buffalo, which are naturally immune to malaria. Buffalo arrived on Italian soil via Arab merchants, who first brought them from Southeast Asia to Egypt for use as work animals. For roughly 2 centuries, Sicily was under Muslim rule, governed by emirs from North Africa. Sicily was wealthy and well-developed, so much so that the various wealthy factions dissolved into infighting, as happens, which allowed the Normans to more easily conquer them. And the Normans were neither gentlemen nor scholars, and they kept what the Arabs did best, including mathematics, agricultural practices, and sugary desserts, including cannoli. Buffalo thrived in the marshy lands along the Italian coast, and they were incredibly effective at doing the impossible work of clearing rivers. As they plod through streams, the underwater reeds that are nearly impossible for humans to remove will just tangle around the legs of a buffalo sauntering through the day, and then easily snap and break. Paestum doesn't appear on the historical record again until the 1700s during the period called the Grand Tour. Part of a complete education was a trip to the Italian peninsula where something astonishing had happened. Pompeii was discovered. The Bourbon kings of Naples not only founded the buffalo mozzarella industry, but also the field of archaeology, which did not exist prior. Pompeii fever swept the educated world and set off the neoclassical movement. Paestum, though it had never been completely abandoned, really defined the word backwater and was a more adventurous leg of the Grand Tour. In paintings from this period, you will see the beautiful Doric temples, their reflections in pools of water on the ground, and grazing buffaloes all around them. Can you imagine what a sight that must have been to city-fied elites from England and Germany? People who had never seen or even imagined a buffalo, or were accustomed, like we are, to having their dopamine spiked by imagery hundreds of times every day. In those paintings, you'll also notice houses and the locals, my ancestors, guiding the buffalo or sitting on a hill wearing loose pants and a floppy hat. playing a flute, or some other peasanty activity. And as a side note, I don't understand how my lineage in this area survived long enough to produce me, as I am target number one on every mosquito's agenda. When you arrive at Pestum today, you will find the very best farms producing buffalo milk mozzarella within a mile of the temples. The most famous, the most well reputed is Tenuta Vanullo. It's a local family owned farm that has made artisanal cheesemaking and the highest standards of animal welfare a point of attraction. You can tour the facility and watch buffalo using these state of the art self milking machines. You can watch them getting massages with what look like car wash brushes, and a guide will explain to you how Mozart is played for them daily in their pens. The result is a product unlike anything on the Mozzarella Highway, and really, it is exquisite. I especially recommend the buffalo milk gelato. If you're a coffee person, get the coffee flavor drowned with a shot of espresso. To the uninitiated, this is called an affogato. That's it. That is the peak coffee experience of your life. But my favorite place really is Barlotti. Partially because it's walking distance from the Pestum temples. You don't get the full organized tour experience that you have at Vanullo, but you can hang out with the buffalo who are very relaxed in a very southern Italian way, and then have lunch inside their beautiful glass encased restaurant or in the garden underneath the pergola. Don't overthink the menu. Get the sample plate that includes fresh mozzarella, smoked mozzarella, and a mound of ricotta. Follow it with a plate of their cooked vegetables. It's a selection of whatever is growing at the moment. And then for dessert, a cannoli filled with buffalo milk ricotta. After lunch, take a walk to the Pestum temples. The swamp was officially drained in the 1930s by the fascists, another group that sought to legitimize themselves by resuscitating Roman ruins. And the ground today continues to be managed. After the war, when malaria was eradicated, a modern Pestum was fully developed once again. If you walk on the right side of the road toward the temples, you'll see water running. There are ancient springs there, which certainly inspired the placement of the temples nearly 3,000 years ago. So the presence of the Asclepion, natural springs, and the temples together means that this was identified by those first Greek colonists as a place of healing. And you can squint past the sunlight and use your imagination to see a parade of buffalo pulling a plow with a giant Roman column atop it en route to Salerno. Because everything good from the old world should be used to build the new one. Thank you so much for listening.